Hello and welcome to the show. It's Canada Day this weekend. In spirit of Canada Day, I'm wearing my Arctic t-shirt. This comes from Nunavut. That's northern Canada, for anybody who doesn't know where that is. This is a festival. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's a festival that goes on every year up in Iqaluit. And in spirit of being Canadian, wearing this shirt. Okay, moving right along. Last week we tried the Santa Carmelo. It was shit. This week we're trying something totally different. This was actually part of a little experiment for the top 10 baristas in the city of Toronto. And what we did is we took this same coffee and we wanted to really sort of explore it. And we came up with two very, very unique profiles on this coffee. And we labeled them number 2 and number 1. We took these coffees, we dropped them off to the top baristas in the city, and we wanted to start getting their feedback on them. And it has been quite interesting. A lot of them do think it is a blend. This is not a blend, and I'll explain to you what it is. This is a coffee. It is a micro-lot coffee that comes from Fazenda VIa Boa, which is in Sul de Minas, or south of Minas. Now, this region of Brazil, the coffees compared to Cerrados are a little bit lower grown, less in acidity. These tend to be a little bit higher grown. More pronounced acidity, and the acidity is way more sort of frontal palate. And depending on how you roast these coffees, you can really be really expressive with them. And what I wanted to do with this is I wanted to create two different roast profiles that really articulate different flavors within this coffee. So the first one, actually, I'm going to start off with is number 1. Number 1 was roasted for 16 minutes, 30 seconds. And what we did was we were very, very aggressive, particularly on airflow and on heat on this profile. And what that did is it really pronunciated that sort of cherry sweet, little bit unripened cherry sweet fruitness to it. And that's what you definitely get on the nose. Now, compared to the Santa Carmelo, remember, you got a lot of that, oats, sort of like Quaker oats, and I think I said it was like Cheerios without the honey. You do not get that on this at all. This, you get a lot more sweetness, a lot more developed fruit, little bit of just a touch of honey, but definitely lingering more towards that sort of cherry. Not quite chocolate yet on this one. On the second profile, what we found is when we cupped this coffee, which we're going to in a second, it had a really sort of pronounced acidity. And what I always look for in coffee is where and sort of how is that acidity presented on the palate. What I found in the first profile, which was a much more aggressive, hard on the gas, really pushed the coffee to its limits, we tend to have gotten a lot more of that acidity. It was very frontal, almost like a really good champagne, where it was very sort of effervescent towards the tip of the palate. What I wanted to do on that, as I said, I wanted to sort of calm it down, and I wanted to sort of lengthen out the profile. Let's see what happens to that acidity. And what we got on this profile is this was completely different. Is what we did here is by lengthening it out, I wanted to see how that sweetness sort of developed, and if it developed I wanted to see how the acidity developed, and I want to see if by lengthening it out and sort of flattening that curve a little bit, would it turn into a sweetness? If so, how would that acidity change? And that's always something we're really looking for when we start manipulating roasts. So, on this one here, this one is just completely different. Is what you get here is that sort of the cherry, which has a little bit of, think of like an unripe cherry, and that sort of like puckering taste you're going to get on the front of your palate. This completely changes. This moves into, a little bit more honey. The cherry becomes more developed. It almost goes from that unripened red cherry to like a really ripened black cherry. But the acidity is still there, which was quite interesting, because I didn't want to, what I found with this profile is if I stretched it anymore, it completely you wiped out any of the varietal characteristics of this coffee. So that's what I get on the dry. We're going to go ahead and soak these. We're going to taste them, and we're going to see how they're completely different. So once again, this is Fazenda VIa Boa. For all the baristas in the city of Toronto that got this coffee, it is a micro-lot coffee. It is a single origin micro-lot from Fazenda VIa Boa. It is a semi-washed coffee. So let's go ahead and cut these. So first one, which is number 1, this was roasted for about 16 minutes, 30 seconds. Now note, these are the exact same color. There's no difference in color between these two coffees. The only difference is manipulation of the way we've roasted them. So, first one. Okay, so what you get on this one, this is really interesting. The first thing is the acidity almost like cascades towards the front of your tongue. Very effervescent, very pronounced towards the front. And then it just sort of creeps. This sort of cherry, slightly developed cherry, not overripe, just creeps to the back of your palate. Just going to give it one more taste. Definitely. Not a super heavy bodied coffee. And I'll tell you what we did with this, is kind of interesting, is the pH level of this coffee is matched perfectly with the pH level of 3.25% milk. So what happens is when we match out those pH levels is the sweetness all of a sudden heightens. So this coffee in particular would work fantastic in milk-based beverages. It may also work well as an Americano, but it would not be my first choice, simply because I don't think there's enough structure behind that's backing that acidity. And I think in Americano you want to have that. It's almost like you want to layer in the flavors. But really, really nice, very fragrant, great lingering finish, and just, you know, it's a great, great cup of coffee. Moving on to the one that was roasted a little bit longer, about 40 seconds longer, flattened out the profile, roasted about 17 minutes and 15 seconds, in and around there. Let's try this one. Now this is what I absolutely love about coffee. It is fascinating how you go from here to here with simply altering the way in which we roasted coffee. So the acidity that was way effervescent, really towards the front of the palate, what we've done here is we've just mellowed it out, and it kind of creeps. The acidity just sort of touches, like it's like gently flapping on your tongue as it creeps towards the back. Definitely a lot more nut chocolatey, but not overly pronounced like you would get on a good Serato. The body has definitely been highlighted here. I think what we've done here in a shorter roast is we've preserved a lot more of the organic matter in this coffee. In this one, it's the body is different. It's more sort of towards the center of the tongue and towards the front, but the acidity is definitely muted. So what we found in this coffee is the really effervescent acidity that you're getting here. When we lengthen it out, it's not like you're really creating a sweetness to that acidity. You're sort of mellowing it out. What you're doing is you're boosting up that sort of cherry and chocolate nut tones. This one here works much better as a single origin espresso than this one does, and is a really this is just I think would be a wonderful, just a wonderful, balanced, nice, interesting, complex single origin espresso. If I were to rate these two coffees, and this is where, you know, part of the show I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and be completely objective as possible. I'm not here to push a logo, push a brand. I'm here to be about subjective, about the work in which I do, and the farm in which this has come from. First one, on the cupping table, number 1 cups better than number 2, based on statistics. That's based on SEA scoring. As an espresso, I definitely think number 2 is better. If you're going to pull it in a cappuccino, I think the acidity is balanced really well with the acidity in the milk. You're going to get a lot more sweetness in this. Now, that's my subjective opinion of the two. If I were to rate this one here, I think it's got a little bit more frontal acidity. I really like the way the body and the acidity is balanced out. I would give this about an 85. Moving on to the second one, which is roasted a little bit longer. We've stretched it out. Once again, not as much acidity on this one. I would give this probably an 84.5. Now, based on what everybody's probably seen on the internet of 94s and 92s being tossed around, I'll tell you right now, is those scores are completely, totally bogus. 94s in this industry hardly ever rarely exist. I don't think I've ever been able to take some of the best coffees that I've received and created 94s out of it. And that's through massive manipulation of roast profiles. So when you do find a 90, and when I do say something is a 90, it is freaking orgasmic good. It is so good. And when we find it, you'll know. Because I'll go completely, totally crazy over it. So, first profile, number 1, 85. I would say 85.5 is pushing it. And second profile, which I think in an espresso is definitely better, but 84.5. So, that is Fazenda VIa Boa. I'd love to get comments from everybody. You can post them on the blog, post them after this. Hope you enjoyed it. Cheers, guys. Happy Canada Day. Happy 4th of July.